Those first three speakers are outstanding, and my topic is life is about relationships. That's what it's all about. I'm going to start with my family. She's holding her iPhone up. That's Joy Sexton. I was a senior at Leon High School, and she sat next to me, and it took me about a month to ask her out. She was pretty, first date. Second date, I found out she was smarter than me. Third date, she was more in the yard. I said, I better grab this one. Ain't gonna get no better than that. She graduated from Florida State. My daughter's got 2 degrees, and she's halfway through her PhD, all Seminoles. My 2 sons graduated from Florida State. I've got 2 sisters in Panama City that both went through the education school. One's a special ed teacher, and one's a first grade teacher. So I got 3 grandchildren. And if they don't go to Florida State, I ain't going to give them any money. Bottom line. I had a football family. I was 25 years old. And one thing about that 73 team, most of us can remember we didn't win very many games. I was, for 5 games before I fractured this finger, we didn't have any wins that year. I probably had to be the worst quarterback in the history of Florida State football. And then to get hired to coach at Florida State, I just was so fortunate. I was the youngest coach. This was 1977. I used to tell Coach Bowden, I said, Coach Bowden, you know you only had one losing season. Would I have him in the car recruiting? I said, you know, when you hired me, you went from 5-6 to 10-2. He'd look at me. I was very fortunate to be surrounded by a staff that was older than me, and I was with the tight ends, I was with the quarterbacks. In my last 24 years, I had the pleasure of talking about the guys Craig talked about. And I was mentored, I was taught, and if it hadn't have been for that staff, I wouldn't be sitting here today. But I learned how to coach those players. I had a great head coach. I had great assistants that were mentoring me and teaching me and encouraging me. But I can tell you, when we recruited those football players, they fell in love with Florida State University. They fell in love with Tallahassee. And let me tell you one thing. It's easy to sell Florida State University. I came here in 1957. My dad was a coach at Live Oak. He came to Leon. And I was a first grader where Sealy School. Does anybody know what's sitting now where Sealy School used to sit in 1957? Police department. You remember it snowed? How many of us remember the snow in 1957? That was on my birthday. But the snow melted and we got to go to school at 10 o'clock. And I had Miss Bracewell. And I think she went to FSCW. And Kevin Kelly, that has the outdoor shop, he and I got slats every day. That's back when you had corporal punishment. She would take us over there. She'd close it and she'd pow, hit him. We would get things like critters, and we would put them in the young ladies stuff, you know. And so I'm 6 years old now. I'm 6 years old. I'm getting back on. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Now that brings up a story. Now, we got married. Now I don't have this down here. We got married, and we were staying over at the Franklin. You know, I was coaching at Leon High School. She was working at IBM, and she was going to cook a big spaghetti dinner. And she got the. Oh yeah, look at her. All right, no, you brought it up. She cooks it. Oh, it smelled good, and I was eating it and everything. Then all of a sudden, I got sick. Everybody finished eating. And I had to go in there, and I was throwing up and everything. And I go, "You trying to poison me? I don't even have any money. What are you trying to kill me for?" Anyway, she did have one thing. She didn't like to cook, so I became the cook in the family. After my 30 years of coaching, that gentleman right there with the red hair, there he is, he gave me an opportunity. I was 56 years old. I was too young to retire. And he said, "You can do this." That right there, there's donors in here. I have had the greatest time in meeting the neatest people that I didn't meet when I was a coach. And so many of y'all that I have worked with. I had a business degree, but I was in football and all that other stuff. It was amazing to me how many different ways you could make a living. And the quality that Florida State puts out there, to me, we're the classiest university out there. We get negative things thrown at us, and we just keep moving straight ahead. And I am so proud to have been able to work here for 41 years. And I ain't quitting yet. I mean, what am I going to do? I will say this. I was a C student. I was talking with a couple of people about that. I mean, I was. But there was two things. When I was about 10 years old, I wanted to get a bicycle. My mother, I told my we got one present at Christmas. So I wanted a bicycle. And so I was going to my mother, "Mom, you going to get that? You going to get that bicycle?" "Oh, yeah." So my mother, she was having a bad time, and I was asking her about the bicycle before Christmas. And she just looked at me. She was an Irish woman. She says, "Billy Sexton, you're persistent." So I started crying. I thought it was a disease. I asked, no, this is no joke. I asked her, "Mom, do I have to take medicine for this?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Will it kill me?" And she said, "Well, it might kill you." That's all true. I'm not making that up. I want to end on this. I did have persistence, and I always had enthusiasm. And then, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I found out what enthusiasm, the root word of enthusiasm, is a Greek word. It's in theos. And in theos means God in us. Amen. Thank y'all for everything.